In addition to that, I also had a quick announcement to make. Colleagues keep mentioning that they want to have the PowerPoints available and other things. The PowerPoints are being uploaded daily, so already you can find them on this link here, which is the publicadministration.un.org. www.publicadministration.un.org. It's the website for the division here under UNDESA. So when you go to this website, you can click on the News and Events tab on the far right, the calendar, which is right there, right below News and Events tab. And then if you click on calendar, like we can click right now on calendar, it will take you to the calendar and then the event for this date appears. And there's a link for this event there. So you just click on the event on this date and you can scroll down. Once there's the calendar, and then you can scroll down, all the way down. The whole background information is there, the aide-memoire, concept note, etc. And then each one is a live link to the PowerPoints and statements that have been made. So they're all available already on the publicadministration.un.org website. The news and events and the calendar. We will send you the link as well, and we'll also send you everything afterwards, but just to let you know. So with those announcements, I'd like to go ahead and begin our Plenary Session 5. Plenary Session 5 on reviewing progress at the global level is chaired by our director, Ms. Marianne Bartholomew, who's already taken the stage, and I'd like to also announce the panelists. Mr. Sangmin Nam, who is the acting head of the ESCAP Sub-Regional Office, if you could please take the stage. Thank you. Dr. Kamaria Nuruddin, who is the Deputy Director General of the Economic Planning Unit of the Prime Minister's Department of Malaysia. If she could kindly take the stage, please. And Mr. Samuel Grunler, who is the Director of Aid Planning in the Ministry of Finance for the Government of Nauru. Thank you very much. Please give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, and welcome to our panelists. So, as Mr. Chung said, it's in a way this session is the continuation of the previous one, but we are focusing more on the regional and the global level, but the three are very closely interlinked. And when we had the Millennium Development Goals, as we know, they were not entirely successful. They were not, many of them were not reached. And many people have said it's because there was a lack of follow-up and review mechanism. It took several years for the follow-up and review mechanism to be created, for indicators to be developed, and so on. And that's in part why with the 2030 agenda, there is a very big attention that's given to the system of follow-up and review. It puts in place actually quite a complex architecture. It's a three-tier architecture. And as I was saying, the key tier is really the national level. This is where the government is accountable to the people on implementing the SDGs. But the agenda was not prescriptive as to how the reviews at the national level should take place. It just says that they should be regular. Then there are principles that all reviews should follow. For example, they have to be inclusive, they have to look at the poorest and discriminated people, they have to be based on evidence, look at interrelations between the SDGs. So there are those principles. And then the agenda mentions the role of parliaments. But within those parameters, the government, determines how the review will be. Then you have reviews at the regional level, reviews and dialogues, where the countries can exchange their experience, learn from each other. And those reviews feed into the global level. And the global level reviews take place at the high-level political forum on sustainable development. And there are various kinds of reviews. The very well-known ones are the voluntary national reviews, which started actually very quickly. Even though there were a lot of discussions, it was difficult for the countries to agree on even having national reviews at the global level. It's a new thing in the area of sustainable development, which is an area where you have softer commitments. So it was an innovation, and the member states, when they were discussing those global reviews, made very clear they are not about finger pointing. Their ultimate goal is to accelerate implementation, and they aim to allow the countries to learn from each other, exchange their experience, good practices, and there is also the idea, which has not so far been concretized as much as it could be, which is that the national reviews, they are a moment to launch partnerships between countries who want to learn from each other, financial, other kind of support, capacity development. So that's the purpose of the national reviews. But then we have also a global review of all the SDGs, and there is a global SDG progress report that is prepared by my department. So the high-level political forum can give political guidance, make recommendations based on those global reviews and national reviews. And there is another kind of review that also feeds into the guidance of the high-level political forum, which is the thematic reviews. So the forum looks at a theme every year, and it started with the theme to leave no one behind, because it's the key theme of the agenda, and it will determine actually whether the agenda is successful if we leave no one behind. And then the SDGs are looked at by small groups in those thematic reviews. So next year there will be the SDGs on water and sanitation, sustainable consumption, production, energy, cities, terrestrial ecosystems. And then the goal on the means of implementation, SDG 17, which is looked at every year. So there is a whole package of reviews, and I'm saying all this so that we have the broad context of what's happening internationally, and with the idea that all those levels of reviews are interlinked. And to underpin the global review, there is a set of indicators that were developed actually by the member states with the support of the UN, and there are 232 indicators. Someone was referring to them because it's quite of a challenge, but the countries have to adapt the indicators, decide which ones are the most relevant to their situation, bearing in mind that they often have their own indicators. So we thought it would be important during this symposium to discuss then the reviews in general, the accountability, the exchange of experience at all levels, and bear in mind how they can help countries to adjust their implementation and learn from each other. We have a very good panel with, first we'll have our colleague from ESCAP who can talk about more the regional reviews, what ESCAP has learned from the countries in the region, how these reviews connect to the national and the global level. Then we have our colleague from the Prime Minister's Department in Malaysia. And Malaysia just conducted a voluntary national review in July in the high-level political forum. And then we have our colleague from Nauru, which hasn't yet conducted a voluntary national review, but it would be very good to hear your views also on from your perspective, based on what's happening in Nauru, also how those global reviews could help you, what would be your expectations, and of course if there is any plan in the future. I don't want to put you on the spot, but any idea that you would volunteer, and if not yet, what would be the challenges and so on. So I would like to first give the floor to our colleague Sang-Min Nam, who is the acting head of the ESCAP Sub-Regional Office for East and Northeast Asia, which is based here in Incheon.
Good morning. My name is Sang-Min Nam. I am presenting our collective view of UNESCAP on this voluntary national review. Marion already articulated the background of a voluntary national review, and currently, during 2016 and 2017, already 65 countries conducted a VNR, so which is about 1/3 of all UN member states. And then out of 65 countries, we have 16 countries from UNESCAP, Asia Pacific region. For this regional commission, we are in between these global processes and national processes. So the job for this regional commission or regional process is to collect views, to generate regional views for the global process, and also to facilitate regional or multilateral, multi-stakeholder or bilateral collaboration. For international cooperation, international collaboration, even if we can't rely on ICT, benefit of ICT, still we found that this geographic matters, having membership of the same sub-region or same region, that always helps us to communicate and then to collaborate easily. So in that sense, we see the importance of this regional processes in connection with these global processes. And ESCAP itself has been organizing annual process which is called APFSD, Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, since 2014. And then, so next March we are going to have a 5th APFSD. And then from 2017, during October, November, we also organized this sub-regional meeting in Northeast Asia, Central Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific to really facilitate the dialogue and collaboration, not only between the sub-regional member government, but also CSOs in that sub-region. And the background of this DNR was already well explained by Marion, but I wish to highlight just a couple of points. One is really the benefit of a DNR to look at your own situation. So there is a certainly domestic implication. Look at Malaysia's case, which was just mentioned. It tried to be really inclusive. This is a must. So this domestic implication is one important element. But we also see it as a proposed by this global processes as a reference for international or intergovernmental or multilateral cooperation, providing reference material for other member countries, other neighboring countries to mutually support each other. So we look at this domestic implication and international implication of a voluntary national review. And also, as you are well aware, this is a country-led process, and there is a voluntary common reporting guideline, but it is a country who can decide the scope and format of the VNR. So in that sense, this is a summary from DESA for VNR in 2017. About 30%, only 30% of those countries conducted a VNR, included all 17 SDGs. So, and then 28 countries, only 28 countries had an in-depth review of 2017 thematic SDGs. And then 42 countries, they really focused on the goals of their own choices. And I also look at like Lao PDI, they highlighted the various national initiatives and they're looking at their linkage with the SDGs. So there are really diverse approaches among the countries. And then hopefully, and then 2018, 2016 we had 22 countries, so 43, now 2018, and 48 countries will be conducting VNR, and from Asia, we have 8 countries, but hopefully they can also utilize existing PNRs to further improve their own format and their scope, so that we have this mutual learning process at the global level. This already I mentioned. You can see the map about those Asia Pacific countries who conducted voluntary national review. And then, so we look at this. We didn't look at all the PNRs, but those are from our member countries. So there are, common elements from PNRs. First, the partnership. We have during last 3 days we have discussed the partnership many times, and so nobody denies the importance of partnership, especially the wider scope and then the depth of these SDGs require from the really new ways of a partnership, from implementation, from planning to implementation, also follow and review process as well. And financing, again, this Malaysian PNR also highlight not only traditional funding sources, but crowdfunding, or philanthropy funding, or CSR. So countries are trying to identify various new funding sources, and then also looking at some innovative approaches rather than relying on traditional, public funding or funding from overseas. In terms of ODA, and then data availability. This has been recognized as a key challenge because about 169 target, and the day before yesterday, Bhutanese presentation highlighted that there are 140 SDGs relevant to that country out of 160. 140 targets are relevant to out of 169 targets. So, and then, but still the issue is how to generate and then collect the data. So in that sense, we have also discussed big data and other sources of data rather than relying on traditional sources. Simply those are data collected through statistical office. And also, many countries highlighted the need for disaggregated data based on gender, based on income groups, based on other social sectors. So we do need disaggregated data to look at situation of different stakeholders. And then, and also integration. You have been discussing this issue again and again, so I don't have to repeat that. Also policy coherence and stakeholder participation. But for stakeholder participation and engagement, we had a discussion on Monday. We had a breakout session on this. There was one question about the legitimacy of representation. Who should be involved? And then when we have a series of participation, and this particular group, does this group really represent the view of a member of society? So, but I will talk about that issue later in this slides. And then, so this leaving no one behind. I don't know whether I also found this message, hearing everyone's voices. So, the goal of SDG, the ultimate objectives of SDG is leaving no one behind. But that process, to achieve that objective, we do need to engage all the stakeholders. So, hearing everyone's voices from the planning to implementation is also equally important. So, this process is important. And as my office is covering Northeast Asia, 2 Koreas, Japan, China, Mongolia, and Russian Federation, also we look at this Northeast Asian countries, PNR, Chinese PNR in terms of challenges they identified, the domestic resource mobilization and raising public awareness, engaging all stakeholders. And Japan also highlighted this public awareness and public-private action for partnership, and then ROK, also this policy efforts of ministries, agencies, and coordination, and reaching out to various stakeholders and so on. I mean, there are, most of the challenges are quite common. I mean, so certainly, depending on your situation, there are some distinctive challenges identified, but we see quite, most of the challenges are very common. In that sense, that can also support collaboration among the countries, since they share similar challenges, but they would have different approaches to tackle those issues. So in that sense, those list of challenges provide a new platform for countries to collaborate. And mainstreaming SDGs at the national level. Throughout this forum, many presentations highlighted their national approaches to integration of SDG into national process. In the previous session, the Indonesian presentation was also highlighting the president's decree on SDG and also creating this coordination body at the prime minister level or at the president level, and also Malaysia also established the national SDG roadmap and so on. So, and also Bhutanese presentation as well, and also Chinese government, it's 11th, 12th, 13th now 5-year plan, so integrate SDG element into their 5-year plan. But I see but most of the developing countries, they have this national 5-year plan and then national economic plan, but now I see the problem of developed countries, I mean, like Republic of Korea, before it had a 5-year plan, but now with this economy size, it doesn't have such a plan anymore. So there is no this kind of a centralized plan. So in that case, how to really develop SDG national plan as a guiding, plan for the country will be challenging. So same story for Japan. So I see quite a different situation between developed and developed countries. But developing countries mostly they try to incorporate SDGs into their existing national plans or vice versa. But nevertheless, Suwon Mayor, he spoke about Suwon's process for identifying 10 SDGs and then building their own SDG plan. So localization of SDGs should be really priority for many countries, and which were well reflected in all PNRs. And then vertical, horizontal policy coherence, especially between, also it was mentioned by Suwon Mayor, between local governments, central governments, SDGs, and then local level SDGs. So how to, but I don't see really from, I haven't looked at many, all PNRs, but I look at several PNRs, but this horizontal linkage has been highly, emphasized, but this vertical is less emphasized, but we do need to highlight this vertical linkage from global to national and then sub-national and then community level. And then those topics, I guess, and stakeholder participation. This is not, even those countries who already completed a voluntary national review, it will be still main, it will be important issue, because for the implementation and implementation for specific SDG or specific target, you have to identify stakeholders. So as I mentioned earlier, there are questions about the legitimacy of a representation by CSOs. So some governments or ministries wouldn't feel comfortable with some groups of CSOs in that process. And then there is a natural question whether are you legitimized representative of a group. So the issue is stakeholder engagement. I mean, who are the stakeholders? How do we choose the right one? That will be certain important question. And then how to conduct a public outreach. And many DNRs mentioned that this online and offline processes for engaging those stakeholders, but still never been enough. So, but how to really actively reach out to the stakeholder will be a key question. And how to go beyond the consultation and committee to activation, so engagement for transformation through a whole of society approach, which was mentioned by our Indonesian speaker earlier. So that is another important challenge topic. Anyway, you can look at it later. And so those tools and processes, approaches to active engagement of a stakeholder will be key for not only those VNR who needed to conduct in 2018 and 2019, but also for implementation of a specific SDGs or specific target. And then in terms of systemic issues, there are a couple of points. One is political commitment, and then ensuring meaningful engagement. I mean, especially for politics and the member of a parliamentarian and the government to keep the promise. I mean, mostly, when we look at MDG experience, it's being mentioned as a key priority by political leaders, but after that, it's not well received attention. So that is important. Okay, and then for regional level, our support for VNR, for regional forums, including our APFSD, we have found that the benefit of this kind of regional process was a regional process for facilitating peer learning and partnership. So, and also this process for many countries or governments, once you complete the VNR, so you are moving on to next stage, but by having this kind of a dialogue, you have to continue to look at your own VNRs and then your own plan for implementation. So this regional process helps countries to constantly pay attention to your own VNRs. And so in that sense, it helps us, to me, for us, it strengthens the follow-up and review at the national level. And through this kind of dialogue, we are mutually learning each other to promote your domestic level integration. And then we also look at capacity building. So we have organized this with the UN DESA regional VNR preparatory workshop before APFSD last April. So we had this preparatory workshop, kind of a capacity building program in March 2017. So we will be continuing this kind of exercise to countries to better prepare their VNRs. And also this process is not just the lecturing, but providing these opportunities such as a VNR learning that countries sit together to have their own Q&A session to mutually enhance the understanding about the processes. So, in terms of learning, lessons learned, and we see the importance of benchmarking in that preparation of VNRs, also sharing best practice and innovative solutions to achieve those ambitious targets. And also we wish to highlight that the importance of CSOs, civil society organizations, in SDG implementation. And then another important point which I already highlighted was localization of a target that fit national context. I mean, which you have done already, but there is always room to improve. And then finally, regional collaboration. So we are not only this regional commission, there are various regional actors in Asia or in Africa and Latin America. So please utilize this regional actors to organize and to carry out joint research or joint capacity building program. And in that sense, we have ESCAP's member countries adopted this regional roadmap for implementation of 2030 agenda. The regional roadmap has two components. One is means of implementation and partnership. So we identified those 5 topics: data and statistics, technology, finance, policy coherence, and North-South, South-South, international and regional partnership. And then thematic issues, we identified some regional priorities which include leaving no one behind, and then disaster risk management, reduction, and climate change, and management of natural resources, and connectivity for 2030 agenda. This connectivity is especially transport connectivity, energy connectivity, energy is the last point, and trade connectivity, so people-to-people connectivity. So with that, let me conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, and very important that you affirmed also the importance of the benefits of the voluntary national reviews for the national level. Some countries like Samoa, when they did their voluntary national reviews, they said it helped them to accelerate implementation because there was kind of that deadline that they had to present in the high-level political forum. And the national preparations by themselves, there is the idea that they are key and they can lead to results at national level, which in a way are independent from whether or not there was the presentation in the HLPF. The results are at national level from the national process. And indeed, the format is determined by the countries within those principles I was referring to, but I wanted to mention there is also the idea that the national reviews do not duplicate the other existing processes of accountability and review at the national level, that you don't create a parallel structure. But I would like now to give the floor to Dr. Kamaria Noureddin, who is the Deputy Director General of the Economic Planning Unit in the Prime Minister's Department of Malaysia.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Malaysia undertook our VNR in July recently, and basically it was to show a commitment to achieve the new global agenda and also inspire others to undertake the VNR. To spruce up a little bit of the cold morning, I'm sharing with you the video that I played in the HLF, high-level political level meeting in New York in July. Enjoy it.
sekarang lagi bagus sekarang. Bekalan air bersih dan bekalan elektrik dan ekonomi.
I'm so proud to see nowadays there are so many successful corporate leaders and homemakers, of course, and also all women, very successful. This brings out such an overwhelming feeling, me being a woman myself.
Still do a lot of things. I'm very thankful that we have a place like this where everyone can exercise and improve their health.
I do a lot of work on mapping the coral reefs around Malaysia and also to look at the reef health status around our waters in Malaysia. Once it is established as a marine park area, it will be easier to manage for people to use it in a sustainable way.
Malaysia is now about to embark on its next 5-year development plan, the 11th Malaysia Plan from 2016 to 2020. In many aspects, the plan mirrors the multidimensional nature of the SDG, with the people at the center of all development efforts.
Thank you. It's about slightly less than 4 minutes. So I want to share with you the experience in the preparation of the BNI. The challenge would be the availability of data and statistics to give evidence to the improvements that we have made. And this, the video was actually prepared, was shown in July, prepared a month before that, and now it's already December, and recently our latest household income survey has already been published. And the figures are showing even better improvement, whereby household poverty eradication from 0.6% has dropped to 0.4%. Part of those I can recall, Gini coefficient 2 has dropped to 0.399%, whereby the distribution of income is better than the last time it was reported. So to produce a good report, it's crucial that we have good information and it's evidence-based, and part of it has been useful, helpful to us, because in the past we carried out a lot of surveys and household income on a very, scheduled basis. So and the scope and format was not being not given to us. We had the freedom to have the scope and the format. And so using all the data available, we can gear towards preparing a report which can support the theme at a particular time was poverty eradication, and that is the initiative that we have undertaken throughout our development plans, I mentioned yesterday, since the 1970s, the new economic policy about growth with distribution. So this is basically the report that we have prepared. So I'll just move quickly. Okay. Basically, there's a lot of coordination work we have to do vertically and horizontally. We have to optimize utilization of resources to help us achieve the objectives effectively. Information on progress must be accurate, updated, and relevant, so that our information, our data is being trusted by everybody, not only when you present at UNDP, but the stakeholders on the ground. The Malaysians must believe in the figures that we are producing. So data that are accurate, precise, legitimate, valid, reliable, consistent. Timeliness is also important because it reflects the relevance of the data, then complete and comprehensive, available, and also inaccessible. I think all of us know that we have numerous sets of data. At the ministry's level, operational level, you have the administrative data and information, and one true source of data will be important here. So there must be an agency or entity that have to oversee the data made available for others to use. So in this particular case, we use Department of Statistics Malaysia and also our central bank data for economic figures. So in terms of data availability, financing is one thing. Financing is a big issue, I think, that cuts across all nations, because some of the information required or some of the indicators in the SDGs are not the indicators that we normally use. So you do not collect in the first place those kind of information. Then there is a new thing that we have to collect that means cost to the nation. And that is also, besides cost, you have to prioritize. And capacity building support needed, capacity building particularly for our staff, our local staff, for them to understand, to comprehend the data, to analyze the data, and to understand the context of the information too. For instance, if you are looking at our household income survey data, you will see that the recent one, 2016 figures published, is that out of the household income, Malaysians spend only 1.3% of their income on education. What does it reflect? It doesn't mean that we are not concerned about our children's education, but it shows that the government, being the purveyor of education, of public goods, almost 100% of education in Malaysia is being subsidized by the government. The government is the main purveyor of education, primary and secondary education. But there is also there is a freedom for them also to choose private education. And then there are capacity gaps, data limitation, like I mentioned just now, and coordination between the ministries and also the line agencies. There is also a tendency for the agencies and ministries to keep their information to themselves, basically because they feel that the others do not know the context of the data being collected, because it's more for administrative matters. Okay. And we have done a gap analysis on the data availability for the SDG indicators. I have put here 244 indicators, but if you look at the book, it is about 230, but this includes the one those which are overlapping. So we have 13 indicators which are not relevant. 5% not relevant, and then not available. There's also partially available and need further development, and also those which are partially available and available indicators. Some of the indicators, if you want to apply to your own nation, for instance, there is one I particularly remember, is the number of ATM machines per 100,000 population. This indicator really tick off the central bank, because to them it's regressive, because with the online business, this is no longer online payment, this is no longer reflective of what of the financial sector. And same thing with ICT coverage. They prefer the speed of internet rather than the coverage of ICT. So those are the things that we have to work on with the ministry. In this case is the Department of Statistics and also other agencies involved in this. But what really helped us was, like I mentioned yesterday, was the coordinated governance structure. The Prime Minister has the authority over the Council, and we have the support from all other ministries. And the other one is besides the Council and the Steering Committee on ISDG, there is also another important group or committee that we use, is the Interagency Planning Group. This is the planning group for the development of, for working on our development plan. So this group meets whenever we want to prepare, we are going to prepare our development plan. So at that juncture, we already met. The group comprises all the stakeholders, government, the financial sector, the private sector, the NGOs, CSOs, and also some of the businesses. We also invited them to sit on the committee to discuss ways and means of moving forward. So this gives us also feedback how best to develop the nation and ensure that nobody is being left behind. And at this juncture, we are also, because the timing is close to perfect when the SDG was embraced. Now, 2 years into it, we are looking at the midterm review of our 11 National Plan. So we are revising some of the strategies, some of the targets that we have set, and we can use almost similar data for the midterm review to develop our SDG targets. Okay, the other thing that helped us was the reports or lessons learned from our last report on MDG 2015. So those are the few things that help us to come up with the VNR. And moving forward, I have mentioned yesterday, we need to go on the partnership or collaborative efforts with all the stakeholders, government, academia, private sector, NGOs and CSOs, strengthen our collaboration with all the groups. Domestic resource mobilization is important, because what we're going to do, funds matters, data sharing among various stakeholders, and also international cooperation. I'm looking at international cooperation in this sense is that where data, where indicators are not fully developed, we're looking at probably a technical assistance that can be provided in developing indicators that are not fully developed right now. As a conclusion, Malaysia, we are committed to implement the SDG. 11 Malaysia Plan has laid the foundation for the implementation of SDGs, will provide the platform for all future 5-year plans until 2030. We have the governance structure involving all stakeholders crucial to planning, monitoring and reporting the SDGs. Partnerships among stakeholders is crucial, and we need to prioritize and focus on SDGs aligned to our national development goals. The same thing with data collection here. So we have to align, because of limited resources, we have to align what is most important to the nation goals. Okay, on that note, I thank you, but for in areas that we think we have demonstrated that we can set higher targets, then we will set higher targets for Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Noureddin. And this issue of the data and the indicators, it came up also several times already. And I should say the indicators, they are work in progress. I think data is available on, I'll try to remember, I think it's half of the indicators actually. Some of them, there are 3 tiers, the global indicators, and some of them, they don't have a clear definition, including those that are on SDG 16 and even the indicator on the quality of public services. There is no strong agreement still on what it should be like and how it should be measured. But I would like, and you mentioned the issue of financial resources, so I'm sure it might come up again when we hear Mr. Samuel Grundler, who is the Director of Aid Planning and Aid Division in the Ministry of Finance of the Government of Nauru.
Thank you very much, moderator. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my presentation this afternoon is reviewing progress at the global level, especially of Pacific region. The content of my presentation will give you a brief background again on our national NSTS and regional goals, which has been developed with the UN under the UNPS, and the Pacific Roadmap for the Sustainable Development, potential regional partnerships, and the BNR, and the implementation of the SDGs and reporting at the national, regional, and global level, at the thematic levels for the Pacific Island countries. Again, on just a brief background on the current NSTS, focuses on responsible government, provision of essential society needs, economic growth, and sustainability both in terms of healing mined-out lands and the development of food production. Earlier this year, we undertook a consultation to gauge direction from our community on what the United Nations Pacific Strategy, the UNPS, should focus on for Nauru. Our community indicated that water, sanitation, energy, climate actions, economic growth, and social basics was what important for the next 10 years. As you know, UNPS will replace the current UNDA, which will expire this year. Pacific Roadmap for Sustainable Development was adopted at the 5th Leaders Meeting in Samoa during September 2017. This is to guide and consolidate the region's effort to implement and monitor the 2030 Agenda and Sustainable Goals, the Samoan Pathway, and the framework for Pacific regional The implementation of the Pacific Roadmap for Sustainable Development will greatly assist the relevant countries and agencies in the following areas: advocacy and communication, regional monitoring and indicator, integrated reporting, supporting the means of implementation. The Pacific SDG Task Force was set to develop the roadmap and has the overall coordinating responsibility for the implementation of the PRST, or the Pacific Roadmap for Sustainable Development. The Pacific leaders also called on the UN to support the Pacific interest in strengthening implementation of their roadmap, particularly through the development of Pacific relevant statistics, as well as meaningful accountability measures for partnership under the Samoa pathway. The Samoa pathway, as agreed by international community, state that sustainable development for SIDS can only be achieved with a broad alliance of people, government, civil society, and the private sector, all working together to achieve the future we want for present and future generations. For Nauru's vision of the NSDS states that it is a journey that will require partnership between civil society, private sector, and government in order to achieve sustainable development. And this is complemented by the Samoa pathway. Listed above are some potential partners who have registered for the SIDS conference, which the Pacific countries, including Nauru, consider. Plus other partnerships can be found in the Samoa SIDS website. The Pacific Roadmap for Sustainable Development, which was recently endorsed and appeared during October 2017 this year by the Pacific Leaders Forum, which confirmed that member states are encouraged to participate in the voluntary national review to the UN High-Level Political Forum when it convenes under the auspices of the Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, which is the basis for tracking global progress against the SDG. It will also provide opportunity for countries intending to report to the high-level panel forum in future years to learn from experience of those that have reported since 2016. It will also discuss opportunity for assistance available from peers and partners. During my preparation for my presentation, I managed to come across this presentation in the internet. It was presented by a Fijian representative, which I have already asked permission by the Fiji rep here to share you this slide. This was presented in Bahrain just November last month. And I thought that it would be beneficial for this during my presentation. As you can see in the middle, just to give you an oversight on the appreciation of, the region, Pacific region. There are three regions there: the Micronesian, the Melanesian, and the Polynesian. That's how, although we're scattered everywhere in small island countries, small islands, but we're covering the big ocean. During the last ocean conference, my president mentioned or given a new name for the small island state because of the vast big ocean. He called the big ocean states, or the boss. Somebody else added the big ocean sustainable state. to the big boss of the ocean. This is the Pacific Leaders Forum, which was held in Papua New Guinea, September 2015, where the leaders discussed on what SDG commitments are and how to implement. And at the outcome of the meeting, they agreed that this Pacific SDG roadmap needs to be developed. The roadmap was developed, as I mentioned, was completed in Apia, September. This slide shows the complexity of planning, implementation, and reporting at regional and country level. As you can see, most Pacific Island countries all have capacity issues. Our government and regional officials are overworked, especially with limited human resource. On the left, this is the what the country has been doing. At the same time, we have to fulfill what the other regional or global partners are requesting from us. So with that limited human resource and capacity, we are overwhelmed with this work. More or less to say globalization. This shows how this shows how the linkages and coordination was managed between the national level to the global level, vice versa. Just quickly, this slide is illustrate show how the 2030 agenda for sustainable development and the 17 SDG being integrated or to be integrated to the national development and sector plan. Probably you can share that, you can read more when you see the slide, because we're getting lunch time now, very close. This slide shows the alignment of the national, regional, and global reporting, and also shows the timing when to submit the PNR. For the Pacific, only Samoa, Kiribati, Palau, and Solomon, I don't know if you can read it, have already submitted theirs, their PNR. And as the moderator asked me about Nauru's position, happy to say that we are in the process and it's with the government to consider before submitting to the chair of the ECOSOC, whereas we plan to implement or submit it to the HLPF 2019, hopefully. This is the draft list showing the Pacific Sustainable Development Indicators. Very small, but you can see that out of the total SDG indicators, 241, only 132 were selected by the Pacific Island countries. And we have only achieved a proportion of 55%. As mentioned in my first presentation, the issue with KPI is not having a proper baseline. Although they can be measurable, and we can have a lot of KPI, but we need a proper baseline, which can be measurable. As you can see on the right, there's a big, there's a small, it indicates that very less SDG have indicators because they're still considering of the baselines and all that. That's the big gap for, especially for my country. Also, if you see the percentage proportion, the highest is the SDG 14, which is the life below water. It's got 90%. Seeing my notes, is there? Yep. Thank you very much.
You mentioned the issue of partnerships, and Samoa, the Samoa pathway was very innovative because there were a lot of partnerships that were committed in Samoa. And later they introduced a kind of system to ensure the accountability of those partnerships at global level, so they have a committee, a meeting, and so it's another aspect of the global review also, how those commitments by non-state actors and some state actors together, how these commitments are being implemented. But now I would like to open the floor for questions. We don't have that much time, but I think just a few questions or points you would like to share.
Thank you, Mariam. In the presentation from ASCAP, we saw that in 2018 there will be 8 countries from Asia Pacific who will be doing the VNR, right? And in the earlier session we talked about the Supreme Audit Institutions, parliaments, mayors, and other stakeholders. So I'm just thinking, we talked about consolidation and having more coherence in the accountability mechanism that we have. Can we, for instance, for 2018, look into the possibility of certain countries where we can have parliaments, the Supreme Audit Institutions, the mayors, and other organizations teaming up in screening the report that the governments are going to send? I think this coordination and this cooperation is important, because at the moment these are just standalone initiatives. So I think maybe in future, and as an outcome from the proceedings of the last 3 days, we see that there is a lot of traction, there is a lot of benefits if we can actually have a coalition or an ecosystem of stakeholders who come together in terms of the accountability mechanism and putting it into practice. Any thoughts on that, and whether we could advance this particular concept forward?
Very good morning, everyone. This is Kalanidhi Devkota, Chief Executive Municipal Association of Nepal. We had a brief Skype meeting yesterday only among our local government associations of South Asian countries, including that of UCLG ASPAC, that is based in Jakarta. You may be aware of the organization. We are together working for implementing, localizing the SDG, and for which we have already started translating the guidelines in our own language. In Nepal, India, and Sri Lanka, we have already initiated this. So may I ask you how UNESCAP or UNDESA can support this venture? So we are very much looking forward to, train our elected people's representatives, particularly in Nepal. We have recently organized, successfully conducted our local election. So there are so many new elected representatives. Mayors, deputy mayors are very excited to lead their municipalities, and they need to know. We want to really orient them, and we want to make them in the forefront so that the whole process could be internalized and institutionalized. Thank you so much.
I have also a question to Mr. Nam. I wonder, if I look at the data availability to monitor the progress on SDGs, I think in many of the countries, data availability is really quite a critical issue. And it's not only that data may not be collected, but it's also the accessibility of data. So I think many countries in this part of the world are relatively far away from the notion of open government. And so how can we encourage governments to be less secretive about data that may also be unfavorable or showing some critical issues in countries? Thanks.
Let me go back to our panel, then maybe we start in the same order we had with our colleague from ESCAP.
Thank you for the great question. 2018, we have Armenia, Australia, Bhutan, Laos, Kiribati, Singapore, and Sri Lanka, and Vietnam will be presenting their PNRs. And we are going to have the 23rd or 25th of March, we are going to have this 5th Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. And hopefully, if Marion, if this can be a recommendation, I can bring this to ESCAP and then see how we can incorporate, especially when we extend the invitation, inviting those officials from Supreme Auditing and Parliament to come together and then talk about this issue. That would be, especially for those countries that conducted PNR in 2018. So we will have a chance to talk with DESA and the UNPOG colleague about this possibility. And regarding Nepal, ESCAP is not really carrying out single country project or country-based, single country-based capacity building program, but nevertheless, we have been also receiving instruction from the New York that to work with the country team closely, and then we have also recently received a request from Mongolia to carry out some capacity building program for their PNR. So we will also look into that. Also, I mean, certainly you can talk with the UNDP, but we would be able to really look at and then see the possibility for providing our technical support. And data availability and accessibility. For this technical part, I mean, it seems like we have two elements. One is technical elements, which were already highlighted this presentation from now only 55% of indicators. But you are also highlighting this political element. But technical element, we are currently working with our Statistical Institute of ESCAP located in Japan, near Tokyo, and also Korea Statistics Office, carrying out various capacity building program for strengthening, I mean, to identify methodologies and sources of required data. But this political element, you cannot resolve that issue through this kind of a capacity building program. But in that sense, the significance, I would highlight the importance of these global processes. As countries are, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, mandated to show, to measure their progress and to present that outcome to the global regional, this like a Pacific case, Pacific Leaders Forum. So that's global international processes help domestic civil society organizations, other stakeholders to approach government and then to encourage government to open the data and to strengthen data sources. So hopefully we have to utilize this global and regional and multilateral processes. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Nawadi, would you like to say some concluding point? Or there was no specific question, but thank you. And Sam, would you like to have a last word? There was no question, but in case you want to say some last message, yes, no, that you don't have to, yes.
Okay, maybe I just want to add on to my presentation. You can see how vulnerable Pacific Island countries are. I mean, I mentioned that even for the funding are there, but it's the issue to access to funds. But even though we managed to access the fund, we don't have the capacity to spend the money because of those red tapes that have been attached to these funds. I wouldn't say that they don't giving us money, but at the end of the day, they managed to tell us that nearly 90% of the funding they gave us, which was used, was ineligible. So we have to, during the period, we have to reinvest all the ineligible funds. So that's how vulnerable the Pacific Island country, for my sake. We tried so much to get the funds, managed to get the funds, Once we use the fund, they said, no, as in you have to bring back. So it's not just accessing fund, but also spending the fund. We need another TA to help us spend the fund, accordingly, according to their condition, according to their regulation. So all those rated that they need to be user-friendly, I don't know, like just put in a budget, not to be that. I mean, that's my only point. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Doctor.
On hindsight, see, we discussed this at length also in our issue. There are some data that may not be available for us to make reports later on, but that we can develop. What is important is that SDGs, we have to implement it. We implement it so that we can show what it means to our people more than just mere reporting. What it means to the ground to our people and our nation. And if there is limited budget to it, we prioritize. And we say just do it, just like 90. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I'll just, I think we have reached the end. I will respond to 2-3 points that were made. First, on the point of Dr. Chaudhry, I think we have opportunities that are coming. We have now in July, we have a meeting with the Supreme Audit institutions, their capacity development arm, and Indonesia is very much engaged also there. We had one last year, but I think this year we should really engage more the Parliament, civil society, and the member states themselves, because I think in New York they are not so much aware about the efforts of the Supreme Audit institutions, that's for sure, but maybe have more details about the efforts of IPU. That would be very important. Then on the national level, for us it's very hard to push anything, because as I was saying, it's the agenda that the Agenda 2030 leaves it for the government to decide. But if you have this kind of awareness raising at international level, that can help tremendously. On the question on the capacity building also of local actors, what we actually, the UNPOG, the office we have here in Incheon, it's part of its mandate is actually to look at governance at the national and local level, and we want to do more in that area, maybe by bringing together for specific events local level officials together with central level officials, so we can build those dynamics between the two levels and build capacities, including on how they interact. On supporting the voluntary national reviews, we have actually a twin division in my department, the Sustainable Development Division, that supports those, working also with UNDP, UN country teams, and of course ESCAP. So that's something that's available. We send a team to help. Just to conclude on the session, first I want to say that in the Secretariat we've been amazed that there are so many voluntary national reviews, because as I was saying, it was a bit of a difficult discussion to agree on those, and some countries were very strong that there was not supposed to be any periodicity, for example, on the number of reviews between 2015 and 2030. And now we have already such a large number of countries that volunteered. And from the panel, I can mention just 4 points. I think one is that those voluntary national reviews, they lead to sharing lessons. I think that was a point that came up. It's almost creating a kind of community of practice on the SDG implementation. And we heard from the panelists what kind of lessons they have been learning, including on the need for capacities to implement the SDGs. Then the second point is that there are challenges also to the voluntary national reviews. And we heard from our colleague in ESCAP about a number of those, civil society engagement, leave no one behind. Very strongly from all our panelists the issue of data, statistics, the capacity of the government also. We heard from the floor to conduct those reviews. And there is a clear message in the 2030 agenda that the reviews have to be supported also by the United Nations. The third point is the importance of the regional level. I think we heard about it for implementation with those roadmaps that a colleague from ESCAP referred to, the Pacific Island Forum. They are adopting roadmaps on implementation. The regional level is also important for review, and then you were saying also for the follow-up to the voluntary national reviews in the context of the regional commission. And this brings back the need, the importance of our regional offices like ESCAP, UNDP in the region. We have a colleague also, and UNPOG, our office in Cham, and how important it is that they work together along with the other regional organizations. And then the fourth point is that it is very good. I think we hear already some partnerships that can come out of this meeting. And there is this idea of cooperation between IPU, the Supreme Audit Institutions, other actors, and DESA also at global and regional level. And then the idea of bringing the Supreme Audit Institutions to the meeting of ESCAP that is coming up. And last point, I encourage all of you, to encourage your governments to volunteer for the voluntary national reviews, to continue this process. And there is this week also a meeting where there is a reflection on how to further improve the guidelines for the reviews. Thank you. So thank you to our panelists and to all of you for participating and listening to